What's good, KAL Visuals, and we have another exciting episode today. Today we are doing a cinematography breakdown of my latest music video / live recording with Jenny D. Let's do it. Today, in this cinematography breakdown, we're going to touch on 5 key topics. These topics are the story, the lighting, the color, the style. It's like literally impossible to get this finger up without the middle. Effects. Let's jump in. Whenever I'm doing a music video, first and foremost comes the story, understanding the narrative you're trying to tell, and then you kind of work in the other elements to add and enhance that narrative. Understanding that this was going to be a performance-driven piece. This music video / live recording, whatever you want to call it, wasn't going to have any story, any narrative. And I knew as a result, if it's going to be performance-driven, performance-focused, that we need to add some different elements, props, different things that are going to enhance the image, make it more visually appealing and unique. By doing this, we create a music video that is visually appealing, that attracts our viewer, that keeps them guessing, keeps them on their toes, and keeps them engaged. It's important that you add unique elements and things that are gonna really stylize and make your project stand out from the rest. So adding things like practical lights can really enhance your overall project, make it feel more professional and appealing. Now let's jump into section number 2, lighting. We're gonna actually look at some real footage from the music video, as well as some screenshots that I took to kind of break this all down. But let's talk about the lighting. Our source light for this project, aka our key light, was an Aperture 120D with a softbox or Shamir, whatever kind of pleases your vocabulary palette. Then we used a newer 660 LED as a fill. I turned daylight all the way down and tungsten to about halfway, so we were getting some really strong, warm tungsten light coming and filling for Jenny. And then we used a 660 LED newer as a kicker or a hair light or backlight, again, whatever pleases your vocabulary palette. And we use that on the back of Jenny. Next, now that we had our main subject, our main character, set up in regards to lighting, it was time to focus the lighting on our secondary source, which is Van Plating, who was featured on the song. And we already had a strong and big source light. Again, we were using a softbox, so we had a nice big source. It was actually placed right by Van Plating and coming over and getting some direct light onto Jenny, but had a good portion of that, kind of maybe a quarter or near half of it was hitting Van Plating, so she was getting some nice source light as well. However, she didn't really have any good backlight, and so what I did is I took the original backlight and I just shifted it ever so slightly, so it was giving her just a little bit of light. And then on Jenny, as you can see in the video, it's kind of ending like maybe halfway or a quarter way through her head and then over, because I split it more at an angle rather than having it straight on in the back of Jenny. So this just gave some nice backlight and a nice little kicker for Van Plating as well. As you can kind of see, it's touching on the violin and edging her on the side as well. And so it's just helping separate her and again, just add more of a stylized look to this project. However, it wasn't quite as much as I wanted, and additionally, the kicker wasn't as warm as I'd liked. So I wanted to add some more warm light and more tungsten in there. And so what I did is I went and grabbed some practical lights from the environment. I brought those practical lights in, brought 2 and placed them right behind Van Plating, and this added some really, really nice warm tone to the room. It gave us practical and motivating light, so it helped eliminate our source from feeling so sourcey. That can be a big problem with doing music videos or any video in general. You never want your source light to feel sourcey. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you'll be shooting an image and there's no practical lights in the environment, and so it just feels off-putting and odd, seeing all this light source on the subject, but there's no lights within this world, within this environment, and so it doesn't feel right. So adding practicals as motivating light makes it feel more realistic. It kind of tricks our eye into believing that those lights are actually lighting the scene. You know, they're creating the light. They're wrapping around the corner and lighting the front of her face. It doesn't make sense in reality, but it tricks our mind into believing it. And so adding those practicals really helped eliminate that sourcey effect that I feel like the video was having originally. And so adding those there, you know, again, really added some great motivating light, separated her further from the background, and it warmed up the image a bit more. So I decided to add a practical to the side of Jenny, and this did the same thing. It gave her a little more fill, warmed up the space, and it gave a better motivating light feel. You know, it felt more realistic. It felt like these lights were really lighting and creating this environment. There wasn't some giant light source projecting and hitting them straight in the face just outside a frame. You know, so it really helped kind of sell and bring that point across. One would think, well, we might be done. You know, we've got the subjects lit, we've got some backlight, we've got source, we've got fill, it looks great, right? Well, it wasn't quite enough. You know, we had about 2 lights in the background that were hanging in the shop, but I knew I wanted more. You know, the background was just super dimly lit. It was dark. It did not look good. And so I wanted to add more depth. I wanted to create that space to really separate our subjects from the background and just really showcase also this environment. A very unique set here, shooting in a vintage shop. And so I really wanted to show off the decor, but in order to do that, we had to light it. And so what we did is, again, we took more practical light, we put that all over in the background using lamps and chandeliers, and used those to light the background. This then, again, lit up the entire space. So now we had a nice even-toned look. You know, the foreground and the background felt the same. It looked like a cohesive environment. You know, that's a big problem a lot of people have, is they light the source and the foreground really well, but then the background is just super dark and just you can't see anything. And to me, that kind of hints a little bit at amateur cinematography. Again, you know, you want to be able to showcase the varying levels from the highlights to the midtones to the shadows. You don't want this giant drop off, you know, where you see, you know, your subject and then everything else is just gone. I mean, maybe for a specific stylized look, but that's very specific, you know. And so being able to showcase the different gradients, the different levels of the light and the sourcing in the room, I think shows a much higher and professional level of cinematography. Next, let's touch on topic number 3, color. So we knew that we wanted to create a very warm and nostalgic feel for this video. And so again, tungsten light was huge. Again, pretty much all the practicals that we put into the environment were tungsten. I believe there was one that wasn't, it was fluorescent. It was just already there. It was the chandelier hanging in the middle of our scene, way in the background. That was just already there, so nothing I can really do about that. And it didn't bother me, you know, it's a vintage shop, and so kind of having these different varying lights and colors, I think really kind of just added to the uniqueness and quirkiness that is a vintage shop. But anyways, we added a lot of tungsten light, and again, the fill and the kicker we used was again also on tungsten. It really just warmed up the room and gave us a really nice, inviting look. Next, let's talk about topic number 4, style. So first and foremost, I want to touch on the hazer. We brought a hazer in, and this really improved and enhanced our video. What a hazer does is it emits particles into the air, and this creates texture. So what once was just dead air, dead space, if you will, now has texture. So it adds depth, it adds dimensions into the realm. Additionally, what I love about using hazers is it brings out light rays, and in our case with this video, you know, it kind of has that dusty, airy feel. And so it has that really just nostalgic feel. And I felt that went perfectly with a vintage shop. You know, you think about all these old wooden dressers and all this stuff that's just been sitting in there for months or years collecting dust, you know, and so it really just fit the environment and the overall feel we were trying to create of, you know, this warm, inviting, you know, 1970s feel. Additionally, when talking about style, I want to talk about my shooting style. So first and foremost, when discussing the project with Jenny, you know, I knew that she wanted to kind of have this one take feel. She wanted it to be a one take or as close as possible. And so I knew once I got to the actual location and seeing my setting that a gimbal wasn't gonna do it. I knew this for a couple reasons. One, my space was very limited. I had very short distance between me and my subjects in regards to moving forward and backward. Again, it was for a live recording, and so our boom pole was set up just out of frame, and so I also had very limited room I could work with in regards to getting parallax. And so I knew that a gimbal wasn't really gonna get much use or effectiveness. I also knew, listening to the song and seeing the environment, that a gimbal was gonna feel way too robotic. It wasn't gonna give me those natural, organic, and raw that shooting handheld can. I chose a shoulder rig because it gives me great stabilization. I can do a lot of moving, use that ninja walk, and get smooth images. I also get so much more control over the image, you know, kind of creating these really smooth and romantic twists and turns. It allows me to really feel off the music, feel off their energy, and kind of mirror that. Lastly, in regards to style, I chose to shoot in all manual focus. The reason I did this, again, similar to the gimbal, is one, you know, I knew right off the bat operating the gimbal, it was too dark to go with autofocus. I knew it wasn't gonna work, and I couldn't go manual or use an AC to pull focus because the AC wasn't there. We just didn't have the budget for it. And so I knew I had to throw the gimbal out of the way. I knew I had to throw autofocus out of the way. And so I was going shoulder rig and manual. And the reason I chose to stick with manual on the shoulder rig rather than go auto and like just boost my ISO is because, again, I knew I wanted to really mirror the raw, authentic, emotional nature of the song and just of the artist performing this live recording session. And so I knew if I was on auto, you know, when I'm doing these turns and going back and forth between the artists, I'm totally gonna lose focus. The system's just gonna go out of whack. It's gonna be pulling back and forth. It's gonna look, it's gonna have that breathing effect. It's just not gonna look real or good. And so I decided to go manual and kind of rack focus and do the focusing myself. And so with that, having a monitor came huge. Using my small HD with focus peaking really helped that. It is linked below, as well as all the gear I used to make this music video. But again, guys, I chose to shoot it manual because I think having that raw, organic, natural feel with the rack focuses, you know, showing that there are imperfections with it. It kind of came full circle, if you will. You know, everything, again, is enhancing and building off each other. The movements I'm doing, the color we're using, the lights that are set up, it's all mirroring and enhancing the overall look and effect and style we're going for. You know, you don't want to light an environment that's really cool and blue, but then you're playing a song and doing camera movements that feel very warm and inviting. It's counterintuitive. So you're building everything off of each other, you know, and it just increases and makes the piece feel like way up here. Lastly, topic number 5. We made it! Yes! Effects. Effects are very minimal. If you've seen the music video, I think I only used crossfade, and I think I used it maybe 5 or 6 times. I chose to use crossfade because I wanted to create, again, this really romantic, nostalgic, reflective feel. If you look at how crossfades are used in films, they're oftentimes used for montages. They're really used to over-exaggerate time. They give this very reflective feel and really help us expand time, and they really helped amplify this nostalgic feel. You know, adding these slow 3-second crossfades really adds to that dreamlike and romantic feel and makes you feel like you're reflecting on this moment that happened, you know, years in the past. And so that's why I chose to add those crossfades, you know, was to really kind of amplify the effect and the overall style we were going for with the music video, and I think it did a great job at that. All right, y'all, and that's how we created this masterpiece, you know, really taking the time to think about all these different elements, you know, touching on story, touching on, if there's not a story, the performance, touching on the lighting, the color, the style, the effects, you know, really thinking all that through, discussing it with your talent or, you know, your client, whoever it may be, can really enhance the overall product, just make the final video that much better. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe. Post notification, you want to hit it up. You do not want to miss these episodes, y'all. We are getting better every day. All right, y'all, that's it. I'll see y'all next week. Much love.